This episode, we drop our new single, The Ballad of Twisted Tees and High Knees, featuring Pauly D's Nuts. You're listening to Can't Read, Can't Write. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can't Read, Can't Write, the podcast that proves Spartans can talk. I'm Mike Jones, joined as always by the guy who desperately tried to relive his glory days this week, Kevin Greck, and not by Dan Hurley's speechwriter, Alex Plum. Kevin, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, don't make eye contact with me. All right. This is an ISON alumni only podcast. Okay. Unless you put yourself out there on the line this week, I don't really want to hear from you or what you think about the games or that kind of stuff, because ISON alumni brought it this week. I kind of think we didn't bring it. I kind of think this was one of my less own personally, and the ISON overall, less impressive showings for an ISON alumni game. But it was fun to be back. Thank you so much to those of you that came up to us. I wish Plum was here because he's a much better welcoming committee than I was, but got to hang out with a couple of you, however briefly, and really appreciated that. That was very nice to see everyone and appreciate you coming up to us. So it was a good time without Jonesy, of course. The best times are had.
That's probably why people came up to you. So what are you drinking there, buddy?
I'm still on my Christmas beer thing. This is the Three Floyds Alpha Claus. This is, I know it's not $6 for a 6-pack over at Stadium Liquor, but I think this is my favorite Christmas beer. So as long as I've got them in the house, I'm going to sample them.
Well, just make sure you keep one stashed for me in February.
I got one for you, set aside. It's got your little initials on it and everything. You're all set.
All right. Well, we, of course, want to thank everyone for listening. And if we could ask a small favor, please share the pod with Spartans in your life. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_pod and on Blue Sky at SpartanPod. Kevin, what are we doing this week?
We got Greenwell football still leading, even though I don't really want to talk about the transfer portal. You're going to make us do that. So we will. Then we've got a couple basketball games, including the one that I was at, that as many people came up to me, Derek Nix came up to Paul Davis afterwards. So we'll talk about that. That'll be a good time. Hockey split with Ohio State, right? Maybe we'll chat about that. Maybe we won't. And did the women's basketball team win today?
Yes, they did. Win. And they pulled it out at the end. They were down most of that game.
I was keeping track of it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch it, but I was keeping track of it. And they were down big in the first quarter. Yeah. And then I just watched them kind of pull their way back, keeping an eye on the box score.
W.
So big West, road swing for them. So what are they up to in the Torvs? Because this is going to greatly improve their strength of schedule, which is their biggest problem.
Yeah.
Come on, Dub. They are up to 24. Torvik. Not impressive. Maybe the most recent games are not in there yet, but oh no.
But I mean, did go on the road and beat number 23 Washington, and then beat Oregon today. So.
And as we saw against USC, it is hard to go all the way across the continent and play basketball games. So, yeah, good for them.
And in case people Oregon is receiving votes. They aren't in the top 25, but they are that's a good squad that they went on the road to.
And they're
take
25 as well. So it was like a very big parity game between those two teams.
And we saw it last year. Our West Coast trip was no good.
Disaster
in basketball.
Yeah.
So men's basketball, that is. All right.
But then we'll go off Grand River, however briefly. Sticking with the West Coast, and interesting things happening at Washington. I think it's fair to
Yeah.
say with the transfer portal and rev share. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll take, as always, your social media questions.
Okay. Let's head behind the screen wall here and drag you kicking and screaming to talk about transfer portal stuff.
So they're not high school boys, but there are like,
They're more interesting because they will probably play, many of them.
yeah.
So that's interesting, right? This
Did I
is, you
see?
are watching the team built in real time.
Did I see approximately 1/3 of all college football players are in the portal right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. We
Nuts.
got a real broken system.
Absolutely wild that a
Yeah.
third. Whew, whew. Um, and then, my parlay hit that Nick Marsh would be out of the transfer portal already. I think he also placed that parlay on himself, presumably, we saw
Yeah.
this week.
Is that
But
is that worse than say the press secretary abruptly ending a press conference before the overhit?
we'll say it's worse. Yes, we'll say it's worse because he went to that
Yeah,
team
forks
that is
down.
on an absolute roll right now.
Yeah,
Did you watch the Oregon Indiana game?
parts of it. Yeah, yeah,
Bro, they get this
they're good.
real team of destiny vibe going. And it's crazy that they're doing it with this assortment of talent on paper.
Well, so let's
Absolutely
talk
nuts.
about that. That's a great transition point. And then we've got some questions about Mendoza that I want to come back to because I think you in particular have thrown some shade his way, and um, I
I've
heard
just
him.
commented that his communication style is very simple. It The way that Paul Davis is in the news right now, he's also in the news. Similar, simple communication styles.
I heard him talking about the Stoics and philosophy the other day, and I said, "This can't be real." Um,
I did not
anyway,
hear that.
oh
Apparently he
yeah,
went to
he.
class this semester.
All right, so MSU picks up. I believe as of the time of recording, we're at 25 commits. It could be 26. Um, look, we won't go through all of them, but I do have a handful that I think are worth maybe mentioning. Um, First, our entire running back room for the most part is gone. Certainly, all the production is. Mekhi Frazier is actually getting visits at some decent schools, which is surprising to me.
Yeah. Including
Um,
Ohio State, right?
Maybe I don't think it would. Maybe Oklahoma State.
Oh, pardon me. I thought I saw that
Yeah,
somewhere.
maybe you could be right. He's getting better schools than I would have expected, but we do have 3 running backs now that have committed. The 2 I think that are most notable: Cam Edwards out of UConn, who put up I think 1,200 yards last year, and then Jazz Patterson from Iowa. Um, there's a third who's coming from a G5 school, but I think these 2 are maybe the most notable ones that we picked up. Um, do you remember, Kevin, a Cam Fancher?
Yeah, I have a vague memory of the corpse of Cam Fancher out on the field during one of
Was
our
he or was he not wearing
pre-conference
his
games.
helmet at
Yeah,
any point in time?
yeah.
Uh, so presumably QB2, Cam Fancher, or at least I don't even actually know that he's going to be QB2. Veteran quarterback on the roster and mobile quarterback. I think that's worth potentially noting. Cam Fancher has joined Michigan State. Um, we've had a good run of these, right? These like
But
QB2
us-
pickups.
usually they're not they're not as like high level football as this. This is an interesting one
It
because presumably, this means that the team is allocating a little bit more of its resources than usual for the backup. And I kind of like it because we've seen a lot of backup quarterbacks over the last several years. And I
Hmm.
suspect that the O line is not going to take a massive step forward. It has to take some kind of step forward,
Sure.
mostly because it's almost 2/3 or 3/4 new dudes. But I have a feeling that as tough as nails as Alessio is, and let's presume that he's the starter, as tough as
Yeah.
nails as Alessio is, there might be a time or two where he's got to go to the tent or he's got to take a little breaky for Alessio. Um, and we're gonna have a guy that's thrown. What are his career stats? It's something like 4,000 total yards or something like that. Like he's chucked the ball around at a fairly high
Yeah.
level and he's had his face put into the turf already in Spartan Stadium. So he's used to it. He knows the taste of it. So he's ready to go, I think.
Yeah. And, the other thing that I like about this is that if you're going to buy a backup quarterback, it's interesting to buy one that has a different skill set.
Sort of the offhand, like the off pitch, it's a
Yeah.
new thing that they've got to go keep an eye out for, or like it's something that they haven't schemed for necessarily. Is that what we're saying?
Or you can, yeah, so yes, if you've got hey, Alessio's questionable for a game, or yeah, mid game, there's a change because Alessio's in the tent for a little bit, or frankly, like, hey, buddy, you're going to back up, but like, we are going to put a goal line package in for you. So, like, be prepared for that. Um,
Yeah. He's over 4,000 yards passing. He's got some interceptions.
sure.
He's got, he's got
2023 was not a good year for him.
he's got barely more touchdowns than he has interceptions, but still,
Okay. Okay.
he
Yeah,
has them. Um, but like this is a guy bringing a lot of experience in like Division 1 college football.
yeah,
And I as far as allocating resources go, I think you could do a lot worse than this.
for sure. Um, The You mentioned the offensive line.
Mhm.
I think there's some interesting stuff shaping up on at least the one deep of the offensive line, but we all know it needs to go farther than that. But for right now, we talked about last week Morowski. I think I talked about him as a tackle. I'm starting to think that maybe he might be also an interior offensive lineman for us. But we picked up Trent Fraley from FCS, who was an All American there. Um, to the extent that it really matters, and I know this is like it's unfortunate almost that he's going to get tagged with this, but he is the son of the Lions offensive line coach, um, Nick Sharp from South Carolina, who transferred to South Carolina from Wake Forest, so knows the offensive line coach at Michigan State. Um, and there's someone else that I don't have on the list, but I think encouragingly, Luka Vincic is returning to Michigan State, which we did see quality production out of
Mhm.
when he was healthy this year. As soon as that stopped, as soon as he got hurt, I think things really went downhill. Um, but I don't know, decent names. Greg, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got to have one, we'd be just as happy as anyone else to have Luca back. But he played mostly guard, I think, this year. So,
Yep.
good. Appreciate that. Um, you can't lose absolutely everyone. So retaining someone that's shown flashes is appreciated.
I believe Rustin Young also came back out of the portal. Back to Michigan State, which
Yeah.
look, I believe redshirt freshman or maybe true. Yeah, I believe redshirt freshman. And I'd say here's the thing about a redshirt freshman who's not performing particularly well is that when they're performing at the same level as your tenured offensive lineman,
Right.
you're happy to have that one come back,
That's the
right?
one you would choose.
There's upside hope. A couple others that I want to chat about. Carson Gulker is kind of an interesting one coming to us out of Ferris State.
I've never seen the word weapon used so frequently to describe someone. And for those that aren't aware, Carson Gulker apparently was like a H-back type, sort of a jack of all trades. Started as a
Connor Hayward.
quarterback. Yeah, very Connor Haywardy, which he introduced me to the concept of going into the portal and then coming back out of it. Didn't know
I
that was
forgot about
possible
that.
before him. But he started as a quarterback, if I remember correctly, got injured, got replaced, but they wanted to find him a spot on the field, so they just had him sort of do everything. He also grew up an MSU fan and said that he committed to satiate the 8-year-old boy in him.
I think he visited to just satiate the 8-year-old boy, and then was like, "Yeah,
I'm not going anywhere else." But he had other options, right? Didn't
Yes.
Carson? He had some. If we're looking at I like a peer group. He had visiting options, if memory serves, at LSU and somewhere else, right?
Yes.
Where else did he have?
I'm forgetting, but I do want to note as a general trend about a lot of these commits. They've had maybe not LSU, but they've had decent Power 4 visits
Options
lined up.
Yeah.
Like we're by way of peer group, I think we're doing pretty good as it relates to this. Kevin, if Connor Hayward introduced you to the idea of coming in the portal and then coming back, can I
Who perfected it?
Can I introduce you to Charles Boomerang Brantley, who said, "I'm going to go down to Miami and I guess pick up a natty ring, maybe."
Do you get it if you're already in the portal and already chose another team?
I think you might, but Chuck Brantley is coming back to Michigan State. Look, I'll just say I think there are other defensive back pickups that we've had that are intriguing. But we have seen Chuck Brantley produce when healthy here. And I have noticed a theme about all of the defensive back pickups that we have. They all get interceptions.
Chuck Brantley, the biggest interception of them all, perhaps.
One in terms of length, which I know you're a big fan of. But then also there's
everyone knows length above girth. I think everyone says that.
And Chuck Brantley at like $170 soaking wet is a big believer. But the other is huge interception to seal the game against Michigan.
Right.
So look, I cackled when I saw this come across. Because he doesn't even have a connection here really anymore. I mean, I know he played a season under Joe Rossi, but like, come on.
Yeah. I had someone text me, and I'm going to butcher this. Guess who's back? Back again. Brantley's back.
Brantley's back. Yeah. Well, Chuck, I guess the good news is, to the best of my knowledge, you can't do the thing again where you go in the portal.
Here's the worst news. One of our most productive defensive backs can't even crack the rotation at Miami and chose to leave. Appreciate your good news, but there's some bad news that comes along with it.
That is fair. So, look, I think the only other thing to say about all of this is I think if folks went and took the time to look at the 24/7 transfer portal classes for Forks Down Hoosiers over the last 2 years, you'd see a collection of people that you're like, who?
Mm-hmm.
But, and I know they've put it up and it's getting more attention now, but that team is chock-a-block filled with old dudes.
Yeah, the
That
average age is like 28 and a half or something like that.
you are being hyperbolic, but like it's 23, and the average age I think of the Lions is 26. Like they're old, and they all came from, by and large, lower schools that you just wouldn't necessarily be impressed by.
Mhm.
And so, will this work here? I don't know. Um, but it does seem like Pat Fitzgerald is at least attempting to follow somewhat of the model of Cignetti. Now, it is important to note Cignetti had a huge upper hand. He brought a whole bunch of dudes from his prior program to Indiana to instill a culture. He brought both coordinators. Like there's a bunch of things that are very different about this scenario. Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to pretend that it's apples to apples, but I do think as we look at where some of these schools are, ah, I'm not particularly bothered that we're not getting Chuck Brantley is a Mel Tucker recruit in the sense of he was a dude passed up at a, you know, sexier name school. Um, by and large, Pat Fitzgerald's brought in guys who have produced at lower levels.
Which is, as discussed on the broadcast this week for the Hoosier game, their approach as well, bringing guys that have produced something. Um, how does it make you feel having our greatest rival be a 7-point favorite in the national championship game on the road at a place that is going to be a home game for the other team?
Makes me uncomfortable.
I was real sad boy Greg last week, everyone will recall. And I think it's because, as we said, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I don't want to get back into those feelings. I'll be back there next week if they win this game. Um, because the worst part of Indiana being there is that a team that we routinely for the last 15 years, I was cleaning things up and I found multiple homecoming ticket stubs
Sure.
and
Yeah.
all of them were Indiana.
Yep.
So like this is a team that we used to think was a guaranteed dub, and then they became a peer, and now we have to admit we're playing catch up for the old Rasputin, and it's a fork straight up my rear end, but it's something that we've got to deal with because they're a team of destiny right now. There's like I have every expectation that they go and win this game.
Uh, it also hurts. It bothers me. And this is part of what I said about the Pat Fitzgerald hire. For those who think I'm retreading sour grapes, like he's my coach and I'm going to root for him. But like Cignetti was there for us to hire.
Yeah. 100% would have taken this job over that job.
Yeah. And, um, the lack of imagination. Honestly, like you have to give Indiana credit.
Yeah.
You have like I mean we forks down. Hate Indiana, but and forks down. But you have to give credit where credit's due. Um, and you have to give. I will give Cignetti credit forever that we mocked him when he went to be introduced at the basketball game and essentially said fuck Purdue and then fuck Michigan and Ohio State too. It was like, buddy, know your place.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Like I could have been ours, would have been a fit, would have been a great fit.
Yeah. And what is it that confirmed listener Alan Haller DM us, Alan, exactly what it is you said about Jonathan Smith, but it was basically like once I talked to him, blinders were up, like it was love at first sight. Maybe we should have taken some other interviews.
Swipe right a couple more times, buddy.
Yeah.
Like,
But it
yeah.
sounds like we kind of just did that same thing again. where we honed in on one dude
Mhm.
and decided that's the guy, one way or another.
And you know what?
And I
We can hope. We can hope that he's able to do it here. I do
mhm.
hope he's able to do it here. Um, but y- there's no denying there's the hubris of Signetti is only endearing because he absolutely has
'Cause he
backed
backs
it
it up.
up.
Yeah.
So, uh, anyway, but I think that's my takeaway, is at least as it relates to our portal commits, is that there is a parallel here, and it doesn't guarantee working, but like, do for listeners who maybe are like, where are these guys coming from? Schools you don't care about, and that doesn't really matter. A lot of them have produced at a lower level, though, and I think that does matter.
All right. Should we move on
Hoops,
to hoops?
yeah.
Should we talk a hoop?
Let's
So
talk some shooty hoop here.
let's talk Izzone Alumni Game 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of comparison being the thief of joy, it was vitally important to listener Mike Jones and I. Listener Mike Jones joined us for Arizona Alumni.
Oh,
Great. Good
nice.
pleasure. That we win this game by 30 for some reason. I don't know where we got that number from. It was artificial benchmark. And we were keeping track of that over the course of the game. And as much as there were some trying moments, there was a lot. I don't think we have to stay on the USC game. There was quite a bit to be excited about there, but no one was as excited about USC missing free throws than not the guy standing next to me, Alex Plum, but the guy standing across the court from me, Mr. Paul Davis, was all game getting up and just screaming at USC players when they missed their first free throw. And Plum and I were talking about it over the course of the game because it was unmistakable that Paul Davis was right across from us. So if you know who Paul Davis is, you're going to just know that that was Paul Davis. So we were keeping an eye on everything that Paul Davis was doing. And my man could not get enough of the Brickin' for Chicken promotion. And as soon as a USC player missed a free throw, he was up and at him. So you would think Plum Plum would be the one most into the free throw shooting, but no, Paul Davis. So over the course of the game, we were keeping an eagle eye on Paul Davis and what was going on there. And then all of a sudden, Heinies stops the game, points to someone over on that side, like the family side, tells him to get out. And it seemed really clear that it was Paul Davis. And then Heine starts walking over to our bench where all game Goran Sutan was really struggling to figure out what the defensive assignments were going to be during timeouts. That was a nice little wrinkle that we got to watch from the Izzone of just Goran Sutan with his like just dumb face on, just like who's even checked in to the game over there. Anyway, bigs, the historic MSU bigs were going through it in this game. And then wouldn't you know it, it is Paul Davis. He has to get escorted out and he does the mea culpa thing
Yeah.
to Izzo or to Heinies. I don't even know who he was intending it to. And then the entire stadium watched Paul Davis get marched out by one of the SID guys or whoever it was. It was one of the most bizarre moments in Breslin Center history. And I know that everyone has heard all about it now, but I was there, I saw it, and I have to give my own, recounting of the situation. So,
Sure.
um, although we broke the story that Paul Davis did not leave the stadium, that Paul Davis immediately found was escorted
What
to
Derek
because
Nix?
this is what happens when regular people get kicked out of Breslin, right? They just get escorted to a suite where they get to watch the rest of the game.
With more alcohol.
And where Derek Nix will pop in and say hello, apparently. All-time great moment. Having Derek Nix be the one that goes and is like, I'll hang out with you, Paul. Fantastic.
I'll make sure. Honestly, on the broadcast, I wasn't sure it was Paul Davis because there was light in the eyes of the person that was apologizing. There were feelings and thoughts that seemed to be running through their head. I mean, because your Mendoza comp is Paul Davis,
right? Yeah, it's not just two flies like flying around. Yeah,
there's no athlete I've seen more on campus in my time at Michigan State than I saw Paul Davis, and they're just maybe
he's so recognizable. As long as he's in your general radius, you're going to recognize him.
Right. But maybe it's because he's so tall and I'm not, but there just seemed to be no there. And so
credit has to be given to
genuinely was like,
for the Millionaire Matchmaker reference. Do you remember when he was on that show?
Yes.
Fantastic reference. Fantastic meme usage. JR, we salute you for that, bud.
The other thing, Robbie Hummel talking about getting Paul Davis's mask.
Yes. The non sequitur, just like in Europe, I was handed a mask to wear, and it was Paul Davis's.
I like I love the idea that like it somehow made its way to a guy who was like on a two-way, who then just took it home with him and then found himself in Europe the season after, brought the mask, like it just packed up, and then it just found its way into an equipment locker somewhere.
Well, I believe Paul Davis, after a couple of years in the league, found his way to Europe himself. I think he might have taken, or he might have been provided that mask in Europe when it happened. What do you think about the media scrum and having a press conference to say I'm sorry? What do you think about that? Because in today's, anyone else on the planet would have just Twitter, no-zapped
it.
Yeah.
I think it is well, first, I thought the apology was well said and done well and way more than was necessary.
That's where I'm going with this, but continue.
But it did end it, right? Conversation was done.
I think it was going to end anyway. Like,
yeah, I guess that's the other thing is, right? Like, I don't know that anyone cared.
Paul did Davis make the front page of ESPN, and it made the college basketball subreddit. It was the top thing on the for my algorithm at least, on the college basketball subreddit, because it's the most interesting thing happening in college basketball.
Right, but there's no follow up to it, right? And so you're right on that. But look, I think it's a testament to the kind of character that Izzo wants his program to have, and that's not a bad thing. And I think that I mean, if we're going to go full Machiavellian on this, right? Like, I think it's probably a pretty good recruiting thing that happened.
Oh, you think parents are going to like this?
Yeah, I'm going to hold your kid accountable, right? Like that, like your kid's not going to get away with stuff. I mean, we've seen
even
it before
when they're 40-year-old men, they're not going to get away with stuff.
But it also sort of is this is legitimately family, right? Like your kid's going to have a lifelong relationship with me. And we've seen him do it with players who are the players who got in a fight that he made get out there and answer questions about it.
Was that Payne and Dawson?
Yeah, maybe.
And
yeah.
I actually think this might not be a great example. I think elements of that were downplayed a little bit.
Fine. But I think the broader point being is that again, if we're just looking at it from the lens of what does it do for Michigan State, which is not
Sure.
the only lens, right? But it does speak to a place where accountability is, and forgiveness are both permitted, right?
I do worry that it makes it a little bigger than it has to be. For example, uh, talking to someone around here who saw speculation online that maybe certain uh, automatic disqualifying racial language was used, which Izzo
Oh,
said specifically, which like as the last thing after he was like, no person on the planet should ever say this word or say like he made it sound so bad. But then at the end he was like, oh, by the way, it's not sexual or racial. Um,
right.
so I do worry a little bit that it makes it worse that Paul Davis, they were like, whatever this guy said had to be truly awful to walk him up here because it sounds like what he said in that instance, the straw that broke the camel's back was not all that bad in the scope of things. You
I I I do wish Plum was here because there's a degree to which and I think I'm finding that Plum and I have a bit of a there's some distance between us on the amount that I think refs are due any modicum of decency.
yeah.
But I, I don't know what amount of pestering that could have possibly happened to warrant pointing to the crowd and saying, "Get out."
Well, I think it's that it's coming from that side which you're not expecting it from. You're expected to have some amount of decorum when you're in the family section. And
Sure, or in the first two rows, maybe.
I'm guessing that when you're yelling from the family section, it's a lot more audible. And judging from some of the Twitter activity from some of the parents on the team, and not just Jeff Kohler, but some others, it sounds like maybe this wasn't an isolated incident, and this was kind of just like the last straw.
Right.
And also, it seems like those parents were not all that bothered to see him escorted out of their section.
It feels like the time I went to the Champions Classic and I turned around and a father and son duo were just gone, and I'm sure it was because of me. Um, the I look, I will say, in fairness to Paul, I don't know that he was wrong, but not to be outdone, the officiating somehow got worse the next week.
Yeah. For those that don't know, that aren't terminally online, the best indication seems to be that Paul accused official's wife and or mother of mischievous activities. Um,
Like selling drugs?
yeah, that's it. That's it. Or
Okay.
themselves. Can I put my misogyny hat on for a moment? Do we have to dance
Sure,
around this
be a
word? Is
misogynist.
this a dance aroundy type word?
It's not.
It's not, right? So when Izzo gets up there and he's all like, I can't believe anyone would ever say it. I isn't one of the best on SNL, one of the best Celebrity Jeopardy lines that came out of the Sean Connery character is your mother's a whore, Trebek.
There,
Like,
he said it. He finally
like,
said it.
come on. Like, do we have to dance around this?
Yeah, and we don't. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
And do
It's
we know
weird
that Paul's wrong for
that's
the record? That has not been proven.
I maybe actually the problem is that he's right, and that Jeff Anderson's his knees just aren't getting high enough.
He lifts them up to compensate for this, the shame of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it really hit a nerve. I don't think it's that big a deal in the scope of things. I think it's unfortunate that I mean, obviously, you don't want to get kicked out of Breslin Center. Just like as a rule, I don't recommend it for anyone. I've not seen it happen to anyone else ever, so I'm not
Yeah, I've
worried about
seen
that
Izzo
for you.
yell at students before.
Oh,
I've
I
seen
was in the
that.
student section at one point when we got talking to about things that were yelled at Robbie Hummel.
I feel like the student section. I'm surprised actually when uh, who Boozer when Boozer was here
Mhm.
that Izzo didn't tell people to shut up over that. But do we want to talk about these games themselves?
Sure. Well, I think we already did USC, unless there's anything you really
Did
want to
we?
say.
Um,
What do you want to
I
say
mean,
about the USC game?
only as a prelude to the next game. Cohen Carr. Well, so a couple things about Cohen Carr's performance in USC. Um, so ends up with 18 points, 6 rebounds, great stat line.
Yeah.
But early in that game, it was a bit concerning because USC was leaving him wide open from three on
Yeah, and
purpose.
Izzo described that as almost embarrassing, which was generous
Accurate.
language. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to call out, Kurtang stat line. Uh, 8 points, 5 rebounds.
Okay.
Now, I think if people rewind the clock, or rewind on the podcast to last year when Kurtang was getting that sort of not quite garbage time but near garbage time minutes, I think we called out that Kurtang seemed to be doing a lot of the little things right, like rebounded really hard in particular as a guard, and we've not seen that been happening this year. Um, we're starting to see that now because 5 rebounds in this game, and then ends up with 6 against Northwestern.
Mm.
So those were from the USC perspective. That was just a couple of things that I wanted to call out as interesting.
And in that game, interesting. We got to see a little bit more Cam Ward coming back. I think this was like a sort of a prelude to what was going to happen in the next game. He was obviously
Yeah,
starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, and very productive. Same with Scott. Scott,
yeah,
it's the next game where he hit the three, and then he hit the follow up because he got fouled, but like pretty productive time from Mr. Jordan
yeah,
Scott. So the freshmen are continuing to step up. I mean, I think we can all say that Cam Ward's injury was more severe maybe than we gave it credit for at the time. And we're starting
for
to see
sure.
him come back a little bit. And then Jordan Scott is continuing to show us how he's the future of MSU basketball and my favorite player on the team. Did Jackson Kohler get a double double in this game? USC game. He did
Which
not.
one?
Shameful.
He did not,
No, shame.
and he didn't get
Shame.
one. So it apparently there's a bit of a sickness rolling around. Um, and it ends the USC game 16-8, but the Northwestern game, which Northwestern is a pretty decent team, like
Mhm.
their record is not reflective, I think, of the quality of that team. Um, ends the Northwestern game 15-8, but with 6 turnovers.
Yeah, he almost got what's the basketball term for it when you get a triple or a double double or triple double where turnovers are one of the stats? I don't
Oh,
remember. This is really good podcasting. I don't even remember the term, but there's a term for it. Um and I mean Jackson Kohler didn't miss a shot though in this game, correct?
no, he went 5 for 9 from the floor and
Oh, so
three
it
for
was USC
six
that
from.
didn't miss a shot during. Doesn't
That
matter.
sounds right. Carson Cooper didn't miss a shot in the
Mm.
Northwestern game.
Mm.
Um,
This was a big Coop game. This was a massive game for our guy Coop. I think he played the most minutes on the team too. like
Yeah,
out there almost
33
the
minutes.
entire game.
Yeah, career high 18 points, 9 rebounds, a block, 1 turnover. Just a great game out of Coop. Great game.
Did you? I I have to be honest. I softened a little bit at the USC game when he was right in front of me, and I started really hard on Doug Wojcik. I think I I think I joked at one time that I was willing to go down and physically staple the warm-ups to his legs so that he couldn't take them off and go into the
Oh,
game.
you mean denim?
Yeah, denim. Well, yes. Um, but I'm starting to soften on him a little bit because his minutes are actually starting to tail off a little bit.
Yes.
3 of them in this game, and in the USC game was actually contributing. I think even in the Northwestern game, he kind of went in relief, and it was not that bad. I think he got
In a
on the
game that Fears
floor
also
or
had foul
something.
trouble.
Yeah.
Um, what do you make of Jesse McCullough's minutes seemingly coming down? Because he does seem like someone who has a ton of potential.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I think Izzo does not like his defense. I think that's the big problem, and he does seem to look lost on defense at times.
Sure.
He and Trey Fort seem to be finding their way out of the rotation, which I also in these 2 games wanted to remind myself, as frustrated as I am with the guard situation, a lot of that is just how Trey Fort has worked out.
Sure.
And I don't see him, he's not in front of me, so I forget to blame him for that, but that is actually probably what this issue is that the Trey Fort experiment of it all just did not work. Um, and this was a game too where the most interesting thing in it, I think, is we got to see what happens when Jeremy Fears goes out with foul trouble. Because we know that Jeremy Fears likes to go hunt for a foul, and sometimes it backfires. So
Well,
what did you think
it,
about this first half, this fearless first half of basketball against Northwestern?
I mean, I will say, first of all, that was some pretty shit officiating. Both of those were very clearly charges.
Mhm.
Um, I think a couple things. First, Jeremy Fears ends up in this game with 15 points and 5 assists. But offensively, I think played a pretty shitty first half when he was in. And then when he came back in with about, I think, 5 minutes left in the half, he was
Mhm.
back in. Divine Ugochukwu, though, look, his stat sheet isn't exactly filling it up at 1 point and 5 assists. But I thought he kept us in, like,
Yeah.
he did keep us in it. In
Yeah.
fact, I think most of the minus and the plus minus, if you will, actually was when Fears came back into the game in the late first half.
And then
So
he kind of slid to the 2 is what you're saying.
and, and Divine, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I just mean to say that, like, I think Divine did a great job of running the point and at least holding serve while Fears was out. And then when Fears came back in the first half, I don't think Fears played a particularly good game in the first half, and we actually Northwestern was able to pick up a few points. You're right. If Denham plays 3 minutes a game, I'm fine with 3 minutes a game.
Yep.
The we need to, in the same way that there's like a Streisand effect, or there's we need something, a name for when a player's prominence outsizes their actual impact or time on the floor.
Mm,
Right? Like the game the other day, right? Denham played 5 minutes and was -1 on the box plus minus. But it felt so much worse than that.
yeah.
I don't know what that effect is, but there is something about, I know when he's on the floor and I hate it. Even if it doesn't align with logic, fully
Even if
aware.
it's just
Like,
emotional.
oh yeah, no, it's fully emotional. I didn't get that mad at Foster Lawyer as I get at Denim Wojcik.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Foster Lawyer is a good direction to go with this. You could also go with Rocket Watts in this with this whole thing, although maybe that's not as good. Um, we'll have to think about that one. We'll come up with
yeah.
something. The turning point in this game, though, Tom Izzo technical.
Hmm.
Tom Izzo gets teed up early in the second half, right? Like 3 or 4 minutes
Yeah.
in.
I think I texted you both and said that wasn't even a good technical.
Yeah.
Like,
First off, I can't remember the last time he got technicaled. I know that he's got this reputation of like I yell at the refs all the time, and that's all the other fan bases want to talk about. It's been a long time since I've seen him properly teed up. A long time.
I
This
think
is
Plum
where
and I were
Jason
talking
Fry
about
comes
this.
in and is like, actually, there was a technical 3 years ago, dolt, and he's right to do that. But I don't recall it personally. Um, but team goes on a big run after that
Yeah.
and puts the game away with like 10 minutes left. Like it went from what was it? Even like Northwestern's up like 7 or 8 after the end of
Yeah.
that technical. And
Yeah.
then the
And
team goes on like a 14-2 run or
14-1
something
run, I
like that.
think. Yeah.
And we get up 5 and the game's just over. With like 30 with like a 10 minutes to play or something like that. Um, but being able to survive Jeremy Fears being out and the team being able to make it work, and then you know, I was just I know a 10-point win against Northwestern is not moving the needle for anyone, but I was very encouraged by the team and the way that they rallied in this game.
Yeah. I agree.
Eh, Were there any big concerning things that came out for you in this matchup?
Um, Look, fully aware that Martinelli is a great player. Um, but it is concerning that he was still able to put up 28 points.
Yeah.
Now, it's great that the remainder of the team was shut down, but historically speaking, if you were going to say, what's Izzo going to do? It's, I'm going to wreck the one guy that's good on your team. And Coop has been playing better, but we're a long way away from. I mean, remember Xavier Tillman at the end when he like shut down 3 huge bigs in a row?
Yeah.
It was Luca, who was the guy at Illinois, um, and then was it Hunter Dickinson as the other one?
Like
Um,
he just went on a tear where no one could score on him, and he was just shutting dudes down.
right, and I appreciate Martinelli's a different player than that, and I know it wasn't just Coop on him. Like, yes, listener, got all of your asterisks, but still, Martinelli put up 28 points. Don't love that. Um, don't love that he didn't get in foul trouble either. Like, that's a bit of a problem. Um, I would like to be able to see, like, this team needs to be able to handle that because you're going to run into another talented big and it's going to have a better supporting cast than Northwestern does.
Yeah.
And if you want to make a run in March, like, you've got to be able to handle that.
Yeah, this team's run, whatever it will be, is going to be pretty matchup dependent, I think. Because
Yeah.
there are weaknesses on this team that we're just not going to be able to solve at this point. To that end, my concerning thing is I believe Chris Collins told our broadcasting crew he wants to do the double in the post thing, which I believe is borrowed from Nebraska and gave us fits in this game. And of course, we lost the Nebraska game. So
I think USC tried to do it too.
well, I didn't see it as much because I was paying so much attention to Paul Davis, who was bricking for chicken over there. But that is a concern for me that there's a bit of a scout out on us, kind of the run the zone on us from last season. Um,
Yep.
Not all teams are going to be able to do it. And the thing that I don't get about it is you would think with a stretch big man like Kohler and a guy that can, go straight through the lane and dunk the ball with the power of 1,000 suns, we would not be susceptible to this. So I've got to like figure out how it is that we suck at this big man issue. Um, but I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to start seeing this a lot more from teams that have time to prep against us. Because Chris Collins saw it on tape, decided he wanted to do it. It's already beaten us once. So hopefully we can figure out whatever it takes to beat that. Usually I would think that that's 3-point shooting, but where are we right now in 3-point shooting? We're not nearly as bad as we were at the beginning of the year, but where are we right now? We are, I mean, not bad. 36%.
Yeah, Jackson Kohler's shooting
And Jackson
52%
Kohler's,
at this point.
shooting like 90% over the last 4 games. So I think that there's a way for us to beat this. We just have to figure it out. But it's something I'm keeping an eye out for in the meantime.
Well, I mean, to that end, right, like, I think one of the things that Jackson Kohler has, I think, struggled with more often than not, despite showing actual real flashes of brilliance, is passing,
Mhm.
right? If who was the Purdue big that Tyson Walker shot over? Um, he was a really great passer. People are probably shouting about this, not Edie, but the other dude. Uh, anyway, if Jackson Kohler, like, we've seen good big to big passing out of him.
Mhm.
Um, but if he could find a way to incorporate like a hook pass, to really pass over the top of defenders, I think that'd go a long way. If it feels like one of those things that, my God, if we could get a fifth year out of Jackson Kohler, like, elite player.
Well, maybe we do. We're going to talk about NCAA stuff in just a second, but where are we on eligibility?
Oh,
That's in the
he's done.
courts right now. No, but
Oh
like
yeah,
about the potential adding of a 5th year type situation.
I don't know. The sport's dead if that happened. Like, sport's dead if that happens. Um. Anyway,
IU's coming
anything
up.
else you want to say about this game?
I don't have anything else to say about this game. IU is coming up. IU's a fine basketball team. They're coming to town. They're Torvik top 25, Ken Pom top 25. I think they're 18. So in the tempo free stats, they're pretty good, but they're coming to town. We should probably win that game.
Yeah.
Because that whole university is distracted right now. But the good news is the schedule looks okay for a while, and we should be winning some games up until, I mean, we got to go to Washington and Oregon. So you got to do that West Coast trip, but
Yep.
those should be pretty winnable. Both of them should be pretty winnable. And then you
Oregon
come
for sure.
home for Maryland, then you're away at Rutgers, which is just a disaster right now. I there there is a bit of a like a collision course with Michigan happening right now. And
Yeah.
it's we get to play them here first, and I'm looking forward to it.
Was surprised that they didn't move at all on Ken Pom after losing to Wisconsin.
I mean, that's not
Just
how the
surprised.
tempo free statistics work. It's not like the rankings where you automatically go down. But
Yeah, but
uh,
Wisconsin's not that.
it's not that they went down in the rankings, but I did notice that they don't have as commanding a lead as they did before. Like Arizona's catching up to
Sure.
them now.
Sure. Um. All right. Hockey puck.
Split with Ohio State, absolutely torch them game 1, and then game 2 I wasn't able to watch it, but sounded like it was a little shaky. I think in the first period Trey Augustine had like, I think the shots on goal differential is like 15-3, and he was just getting pummeled. So it's hard to win games like that. Split on the road, not what you want from your number 2 team in the country, but they'll bounce back.
Yeah. All right. Should we do some off Grand River here?
Well, if we're going off Grand River and we're going down 127, and then let's say we get on 94, where would you get a bite around that area?
Well, geez. Oof. Well, I'd probably head over to let's see, I'd probably head over to 4450 Clear Lake Road
I hate you for
in Grass
using the
Lake,
address.
Michigan.
We just Google it, okay? The place is called Mama's Mercantile and Eatery. It's still not clear where the mercantile is coming from or going to appear, if ever. It's eatery. It's an eatery.
I did see by the way, pictures of the wood that is coming for the bar that is being installed. Um
Mm.
yeah, so dear listener, the eatery is about ready to be a drinkery as well. So, I mean, you can get great cocktails and beers there. Like to be clear, the cocktails are elite, but there's about ready to be a place that you can post up and just drink your sorrows away.
And you're going to get 10% off that bar tab when you mention can't read, can't write. Shall
Hmm.
we go off Grand River?
Yeah, let's do it. Set the scene for folks.
So this week, interesting things happening in the transfer portal. I don't know if you've ever seen this or heard about this, but players saying they're going to go to one place and then going to an entirely different place. The difference was in this case before was Washington's new quarterback. And what's his name? You got his name in front of us, right?
Desmond Williams, is that what
Yeah,
it is?
Desmond Williams, one of the considered better quarterbacks. Goes to Washington, spends some time there, signs a piece of paper, and then says, you know what? As pretty as this place is, and as cool as it is, Joey Freshwater called, and I want to kind of go down to the SEC. And Washington said, "Not so fast, my friend." And this is the first time that I can recall, and maybe it has happened, it just hasn't happened in such a high profile way, that a school has actually enforced one of its agreements
Right.
with a student athlete. Now, we have to be clear, it sounds like this is the rev share agreement with the student athlete that has been signed by Mr. Williams, and they chose to enforce it on him. And wouldn't you know it, he turned around and he found his way right back into Seattle, which is going to be a little awkward, I think, at first. Could be a little
Yeah, it's
uncomfortable.
so awkward.
But it's the first time I can remember this actually happening. We've seen, for example, wasn't it Wisconsin that went after Miami, right, for tampering or something
Yes.
like that? We've seen like institutional frictions, but this is the first time that I can recall where one of the college basketball or football, pardon me, programs actually enforces an agreement on a student
Yeah.
athlete. And it's most important because it appears that this is the rev share agreement, and it appears to be the document provided by the Big Ten to all of its member institutions. So
Done
presumably,
so after Wisconsin and Miami got into their feud. So,
mhm,
like, this was a learning thing that happened.
and it sounds like
Sorry.
this thing's got some teeth, and presumably MSU is using this document for its rev share um, agreements as well. So as we talk
Yeah.
about like the transfer portal and guys being on 1-year contracts and going every which way, this is the first time that we've seen someone actually have to stick around when they didn't intend to. Your thoughts on this, Jonesy, as our recovering lawyer on the podcast. What stood out to you on this?
Good. Good. Um, there was some interesting drama. Williams's original representation dropped him, citing philosophical reasons. Um, Interestingly, though, that Williams's representation at the time also represented Jed Fish, the head coach of Washington.
Mm.
Um, but
And in
um,
that case, you definitely take the head coach over
I,
the NIL dude or the
I,
rev share dude, I guess in this case.
I tend to think this. Yeah, I think this is probably a net positive for the game in the long run. Like, I don't expect we're ever going to get back to a 4 or 5 year deal, right? The genie's out of the bottle on that one. If we could get to 2, that probably makes sense, right? Because you can figure then you're at your end of your redshirt freshman year. We can have an honest conversation about that at that point in time about, do we want to continue to invest in you?
Yeah.
Like, are you worth keeping around?
On the other side of this, a lot of ink has been spilled about the SEC's lack of involvement in what is now the last 3 national championship games, because this is the
Hmm.
conference where it just means more. And the narrative that seems to be emerging in all of this is they're losing their touch because on the high end, your Bamas, your Saban Bamas, etc., they can't stash talent like they used to. The transfer portal has made the talent pool sort of move around a little bit more. So to a degree, I think those think pieces would make the argument that the Big Ten is benefiting from the transfer portal. But I agree with you that we could cool it just a little bit. Do you
Yeah,
think multi-year agreements could come out of this?
I hope so. Like, I mean, I think that's why 2 years is really great. Let's assume most college football players redshirt, right?
Mhm.
I think we can all agree on that. By the end of your redshirt freshman year, the school can accurately make a hey, yes, no, right? Like, and then depending on the caliber of the player, you're gonna pony up big time, or you can variable length your deal. Um, if you're like Desmond Williams or Demond Williams, I'm sorry, not Desmond, um, who is a sophomore and has played, right? Like, there's some players you're paying to play right away. But I don't know. Like, I would hope multi-year deals come about sooner rather than later. Um, and then, but I hope they become standardized. And by that, I
Mm.
mean, um, I don't want this re-signing thing anymore. Or like or it needs to be different. There needs to be an agreed upon, hey, we're going to make a decision about whether we think you're worth holding on to. And it doesn't mean you're bad, right? Like, you
No, it
might
doesn't mean
leave
you're not good people. It's just we don't want you here anymore.
or you may be worth quite a bit of money to another school, but you're not worth that much money to our school, right? Like,
Right.
there's a whole host of reasons that could happen. Um, but I'm tired of this 1 year shit, even if it
It
is
is
absolutely
fatiguing.
benefiting Michigan State right now.
Oh, it is, yeah. Because as we discussed during the season, do not cry for the guys in the transfer portal. They were
Because
not
that's the other thing,
producing.
is that if you have multi-year deals and they evaporate the second a coach is gone,
Mhm.
could you imagine if a whole bunch, if we talked about what 1/3 of all of college football is in the portal right now? If you didn't have that talent pool there right now to pick from, we'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so, I, I'm not paid to think through all of these things, but I could see that being a real situation where you fire a coach and your school is in a death spiral for years.
That's kind of the way it used
Um,
to be. And what you did at that point was gotta let them get their guys. You gotta give them 4 years to get the guys, maybe 6 years to get the guys. We just fired
And maybe that's okay. Like, maybe we
a
can
coach
all
after 2
agree
years.
that that's actually fine.
That was too
So,
long.
3 3 years. We can agree.
The pendulum
3 you
was
got
too
3
far that
years.
way, then it swung too far this way. We got to find somewhere in the middle. Should we take some social media questions? Because our guy, Mike Jones, is up first. And as he should, he's talking alcohol. How many twisted teas are too many twisted teas? It's however many Paul Davis had plus 1. Because I would say my man was he was spitting fire. He was like right in it. Or maybe it's Paul Davis had
How
minus
much do
1.
you think he weighs?
Like 300
How much do you
something
think he
pounds.
weighs?
The I gotta say those that team wear that he was wearing both in front of the podium and in the stadium, not doing him any favors, dad bod wise. I think that was my biggest surprise in all of this is like Paul Davis put a little bit of a pouch on him, a little bit. I mean, I
Well,
guess it
he
comes
played
for
down in
us all.
Australia.
So
You gotta hide the Joey. You gotta hide
yeah,
the Joey right there.
yeah, the Twisted Tea Joeys. They were going to town. Next up from Mike Jones. I've seen the floating green Spartan helmet so much this past week. It's now showing up in my dreams. You too?
I saw this question, Kevin, and the non sequitur, but it made me immediately think of that time in college where we played far too much Tetris, and I would close my eyes at night and I would see the blocks.
That was just because I was there in your dorm room underneath your bunk going.
That's what you were doing underneath my bunk? Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, Next up is Corey Ostrom. Are the terms college quote unquote agents and an alarming percentage of college parents essentially synonymous as being a fairly significant part of the problem? Apologies to the recovering lawyer in the pod ahead of time for equating agents, many of whom are lawyers, with being a problem.
I think
Uh,
we'd be
Greg,
thrilled if more of them were lawyers. I think many of them are not formally educated at all. Not 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 that you can't, I don't want to get all MBA about this whole thing, but like not that you can't be a good agent just because you didn't go to college. But Corey, I happen to know agents were involved with college football players a decade plus ago. Like anyone that looked like they were going to the league had an agent, maybe not necessarily getting paid for their services or paying for their services, but they were involved in things. Um, your thoughts on this, Jonesy?
well, so first of all, I agree with you. Yeah, it's sort of like there's someone who's running like a realtor shop, and it's like the guy from Schitt's Creek who was both the town photographer and the realtor, and also an agent for college athletes. There is a lot of that. We should, speaking of people who do it as a part time gig, I have a coworker, one of the attorneys at my company, who is an agent and
Mm.
represents both players and collectives. Um, and maybe we talked about having him on. Maybe we should actually reinvite that conversation in the transfer portal time, just as a help walk all of us through what happens. Like, what's it look like? What's it feel like?
So
Um,
is Corey
how do
more
these
right
deals
about
work?
this than I understood? That a lot of agents are lawyers or part-time agents are lawyers or something like that?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I do think I think two things are probably true. One is that there are lawyers who do this and they're good at their job. And I think we even can see this in the Damon Williams instance and certainly with Sam Levitt. And then I think there are people, the camp, and I think they fuck things up. They're more empowered now than they've ever been before. And so We see Sam Levitt shopping himself around before the season's even over. If that stuff, there's always been that uncle in the
Yeah,
ear.
the unks have been involved forever.
But now I think the problem is that actually mom and dad are kind of involved because they're getting paid today.
Mm-hmm.
And so eh, and you can move more freely. So I think we're just actually seeing the worst in people, um, and short-sighted want for money. Next up is Beth Amaro. Greg, forget the Epstein files. Release the Can't Read, Can't Write YouTube practice episodes. Do we need a subpoena?
I'm gonna issue an executive order that those be destroyed. Thank you. A subpoena, Beth Amaro. There's only one branch of government anymore. Come on.
Next up from Beth
Are
Amaro,
there
your extended.
hang on this? Are there actually
Yeah.
YouTube practice episodes? There are definitely podcast practice episodes.
Yeah, no, I think
they're awful.
Beth is maybe mistaken about what we were referring to last week, which is that Greg and I did practice episodes before we started the podcast. What did we do, 2 or 3?
We did 2, I believe.
2.
And you would think, listening to our first overall episode, that we did a -1. They were not a spectacular help. No, Beth,
I don't know
if you
that
want
we've gotten
some
better, if we're being honest.
if you want some inside podcast knowledge, no, Jonesy sprung YouTube on me. I did not like the idea, and I'm still not sure about it. Next up from Beth, I'm going to go to you with this. Your extended rant on mommy issues last week was hilarious, but I have to ask, do we hold Spartan dads to a different standard? There are certain dads who also gush over and vigorously defend their sons on social media. Just saying. It's a good question. Fair.
Great question, Beth. Some
said that Connor Cook's draft status was actually hampered by his father on social media. But continue.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was one of the explanations that was going around at the time.
Well, my experience with MSU dads has been that largely they're people who I don't want to see their social media feed. And in particular, the football players, they tend to be white linebackers. But
Except for we had one of those asking us Twitter questions for a while.
And then, you see love you, Jay Rich, love you, but
yeah, we didn't talk about that in all of this.
Yeah, this. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Jason Richardson claimed that social media has cost MSU recruits. He says that about MSU, who just signed the number 1 or number 2, I don't know which one it ended up being.
I believe it's 2.
2 recruiting class in the country. Cost us so dearly. I refuse to believe that our fan base is any more psychotic than Big Blues over in Kentucky.
Yeah, I think it is worth talking about this Jay Rich topic because, of course, everyone on social media could stand to take it down a notch, but I think it remains unproven that MSU is particularly toxic. But Beth, on the same podcast that I used the W word in reference to SNL, of course, but I appreciate you pointing out our misogyny and holding a mirror up to us. Thank you for that. That said,
speaking of allies,
we should be harder on moms.
Pat Fitzgerald
to do that.
Pat Fitzgerald tweeted out the women's game score. #ally.
Yep. All right, next up from the search.
Kevin,
am I alone in how creepy/spooky I find Mendoza to be with his media trading augurs? What is this word?
It must be training.
Anyway, He seems like he was formed in the lab to become friendly-faced and a good story right-wing political ghoul that other athletes like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning were unable to become. So I've seen a lot of Mendoza in front of the camera this year because I've been forced to watch IU football games. This thing that you shared with me that he was talking about some like philosophical things, that's never been my experience. Basically, my experience is that he's the congressman from Parks and Rec that basically gets rolled out to say platitudes, and then they just sort of like shoo him off to the side. But what did he say this week, Jonesy?
He was talking about delayed gratification and stoicism. And it was after, I believe, yeah, here.
Was brought up by Stoicism and by the Stoics. And I think it's one of the greatest. It's one of the greatest attributes. If you're able to have delayed gratification, discipline in yourself, discipline in your process and preparation, you're able to execute every single week. Like, this play or this game is the national championship game. Like, this game is the most important thing. And so I think that a lot of players and a lot of coaches, just everybody in Bloomington has done a great job of upholding that concept of delayed gratification and discipline throughout all aspects of our lives. When there's a lot of distractions, and especially with the Big Ten championship, and
I don't think that all tracks, by the way, his logic. I think maybe he.
No, it doesn't, but he cited a philosophical. I didn't know he knew the word stoicism.
Yeah. But the search, and we'll just assume that it's the three of you behind this question. Yeah, he does seem to be playing that role pretty well, and we'll see where this goes. I mean, he's going to get taken first overall probably in the draft. This is not the last that you've seen of him by any measure.
Oh,
Is
he going to the Jets? Oof.
Unless he decides to get his head ripped off in this game. Next up from the search is Chuck Brentley more SD Pharrell than players who spent all their eligibility as Spartans. This has been the greatest test of Plum's rule of you're not truly a Spartan for life until you leave. Here, the prodigal son has returned. We need him here to answer this question. This question belongs to Plum, and we should wait until he gets back to answer it. Do you have a thought on it before we move on, though?
No, okay. Agreed. This is for Plum. But I'll say next up that Jason Fry, how did high knees ref hear Paul Davis say the unsavory insult? His monotone voice is so dull and low-toned. Also, please speculate what thoughts were going through his head behind his lifeless eyes as he stared across the court while Izzo reprimanded him.
Their lifeless
Greg,
eyes.
You were there.
A shark's eyes. It was a wild moment seeing Izzo like clearly talking directly to him and seeing him responding across the court and knowing that play had stopped. It was maybe that's what high knees didn't like about it, is like, this idiot back here is saying all this stuff about my wife and or mother. Is that what that's what we're doing?
Or my wife, mother.
Because, or maybe high knees looked to Plum and I and said, these are two upstanding gentlemen. They're not saying anything about me and my high knees. We weren't, of course. That didn't come up at all. But then he was like, but this guy, I will not abide. And he called it. But yeah, I think
I heard he said
there's like the frequency thing that got Paul Davis of like low frequencies tend to go further. So his rumble and his general emptiness was able to travel further than my shrill voice and whatever it was screeching at the time. Next up from Jason Fry. Would show sponsor Mama's Mercantile and Eatery be interested in a new drink? It's called the Nick Marsh. It's just breast milk, and it's served in a baby bottle since he's clearly not weaned. 10% off. Can't read, can't write. Just mention us. Next up from Tigers fan 63. Any truth to the rumor that Marsh left because our sponsor wouldn't rebrand to Mama's Ron's Mercantile and Eatery? We got a theme going. I think he went to Indiana because he heard that Mama's Mercantile has plans for franchising and expansion, and that Bloomington is the first spot on that list. So heard it here first, folks. Mama's Mercantile Part 2, Bloomington, Indiana. Next
It's
up
not
from
happening, by the way.
Yeah, well, but a man can dream, and that man is Nick Marsh. Next up from Tigers fan 63, will our portal additions outperform our portal losses? Jonesy.
At some point in time, they have to, right? Like, right?
I kind of think they can't underperform, like physically.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible to underperform.
That's what I'm saying. At some point in time, they have to outperform them.
Have we? Do we want to talk about the rumors around MSU's war chest for this round and what people are saying? I'm almost disinclined to provide it with a big caveat because this is always so unclear and we've been misled, I think is safe to say, so frequently in the past. But rumors, listeners, in case you have a life and you're not trafficking in these things, and they do, maybe it's not a rumor anymore when the LSJ columnist is talking about these things, is that MSU generally is in the top third, top quarter of the Big Ten or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of rumors going around about how much Indiana has. I'll remind you that we don't really know any of these things for sure. It was just reported that at Ohio State, they think they need $45 million to keep together a top 5 roster. I don't know. I don't know where we land in all of this, but it's
really hard. What's frustrating is that, like, you know, someone could say you're in the top third, but do you know what the other schools have? Does anyone at Michigan State even know what the other schools have? I would be shocked to find out that they're sharing this information with each other, because football coaches are paranoid as fuck. They don't share anything.
You can maybe suss out the market by, like, how'd you miss out? Who'd you miss out to? I think you could get a vague idea generally of who ends up with the guys that are looking for cash. Generally, what are they looking for? That kind of stuff.
Sure. But I would suspect that being able to tell whether you're top third or top half might actually get kind of difficult to figure out at some point in time. Yeah. So whatever it is, I do think we can probably say with confidence that at least people in Michigan State feel like they're doing better probably than they felt like they did in the past.
Yeah.
Because if folks are saying we think we're top third, and then that's being passed along through media, then presumably that means they feel like they're in a better spot. Next up is Tigers fan 63. Kevin, we got a repeat here. Will Chuck Brantley qualify for SD4L status? I think we need to make this a whole segment next week.
Yeah,
with Alex
gotta
Blum.
wait for the guy. Next up from Thomas, then, I liked having 2 Izzone alumni games, so I could play at one family, so I could play at one finally, but did having several dilute the crowd's intensity. So I think Thomas was at one. I will say there were a lot more families at this Izzone alumni event than I can remember in the past. I think of the Izzone as a place not fit for children, but apparently other former Izzone members do not remember it that way. I do think that these were 2 pretty tame Izzone alumni crowds, if I may, particularly the second one against Northwestern. Pretty unimpressive at times. They did bring it in the second half, but they dogged it in the first half. I've got a hot take. You ready for this, Jonesy?
Sure. I got one for you too.
I think the addition of alcohol to Breslin Center does not serve the Arizona alumni. We are not the young bucks and does that we used to be. I think a couple of beers before the game, sure, you got to get a little sauced up. You got to sort of get in the zone. But if you can get into the twisted teas all game long, that has a cumulative effect that starts to bring you down. And I think in the future, like the clarity of not having a drink while in the Arizona alumni. Part of this is my own personal lived experience. I found that it was hard to be uproarious and hold a drink at the same time. And I think if you set it down, it's going to get knocked over in a second. So like if you have one with you, you're protecting it. It's precious cargo. You're thinking about that. You're not thinking about the vile hate spewing that you're doing at high knees. So
you were in full Gollum mode at that point in time.
Yeah, my precious. Yes, yeah, my precious. And putting that beer on caused me to disappear. So this is a perfect Lord of the Rings analogy. So that's my hot take. You said you have one on this subject as well.
Yeah, I disagree with you that that the Izone is not for children. I think it's for hardening your children. I think it is absolutely a place for children, but you need to be prepared for your children to come back not well.
Yeah, there's going to be some questions
you're
going to have to answer afterwards.
Yeah.
I did from TV though. What did you think about the two different games?
I would agree with you that I thought they were both a little less than, but the Northwestern one in particular was dull, which was surprising because it being a Thursday felt like it probably had the opportunity.
It sold out
to be a little bit more.
It was the preferred game, it seems.
Sure.
But it didn't have us on the TV.
Next up from
Plum and
Thomas.
I were on the TV for the first one, and that's the most important thing. At the risk of making this idea my whole deal trademark, are there any actual rules preventing Coach Freilich giving the guys a shooting lesson? The women seem like better on offense, to be honest.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm into it. But our shooting's been better.
Yeah. And it does just kind of happen to be the women's teams shoot better. Like if you watch the skills competitions during the NCAA tournament, the women routinely beat the men in the 3-point shooting competition. So, but sure. Yeah. Would love to have better 3-point shooting all the time. You want to take this next one?
Sure. Beppe Plum, up next. What are your preferred power tool companies? My guess, Plum is a Craftsman, Timeless, Jones, DeWalt, Grooch, Hyper Tough. How did I do? Surely better than 79% of the bag chasers that are with the ugly sister-in-law because she won the lottery. Not directed at any WR or
Wide
anything.
Receiver.
You should have said "bang the mother." Would have gotten that better.
Are you in a tool brand? Let's take this question literally. Are you in an ecosystem?
Yes. I'm in the Ryobi family.
Ryobi guy over there. You were wrong, yeah. Beppe Plum, and it got worse. I'm DeWalt guy. I'm in the ecosystem for the DeWalt. Mm-hmm.
Of course you are.
Prosumer. Come on, look at me. I'm a very serious guy. I do hear, is Hyper Tough Harbor Freight?
I don't know.
I've heard that Harbor Freight's like top of the line stuff is really good and probably where you should be spending your money. Like Harbor Freight gets a bad rep, but I've heard really good things. Hyper Tough is Walmart.
Next up from Beppe Plum, I've been working about 80 hours a week. Teachers get paid the same amount no matter how much we work. Yeah, buddy. What should be my weekly effort for 2026? The Fitz 80 or the aforementioned wide receiver route version of 35. It seems students care and try the same no matter how much hard I work. No matter how hard I work. Hey, Beppe, I'm I'm very sorry, but I have to ask you a question. Do What do you think happens with other people who are salaried? Like,
Go easy on Beppe. Did you
no,
do 80 hours this week, Mr. Salary guy? I didn't.
I'm just saying, like, this idea that that you get paid the same amount no matter how much you work. Yeah, that's a lot of jobs.
Yeah. Um, what's the most you've worked in a week in the last year, do you think? How many hours? Where's it top out?
And we're not including like travel related stuff, I assume.
Yeah, I guess we wouldn't in this case.
Yeah. No, I'd probably cap it somewhere between this. There was like a couple weeks around a deployment that were like in that 70 to 80. It was
It's
a
that
rough
high.
couple weeks.
I'm
Yeah, like I
almost
mean it but oftentimes we're not close to that. So,
yeah. I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. I did a work all-nighter in 2025. These things should not happen. Yeah.
no, this is your fault.
It was, and I knew it at the time, my fault. And it was not a complete all-nighter. I took a cat nap. Um, but I was really stressed about this project. I put it off for too long, and then I had to really crunch on it. And then I had other things that popped up too at the same time. And I the whole time I was like, "You're an idiot for putting yourself in this position. This should not happen." It was my first one since college, and lessons were learned. But we're with you, Pepe Plum. That sucks, but
Speaking of which, I have a large deliverable tomorrow, outside of the other thing, and
we should accelerate. Yeah,
uh, well, no, just I'm gonna be up early just doing that.
yeah.
So,
We feel
next
you,
up,
bud. We feel you.
yeah, Nate C. So hockey's pretty much a wash at this point, eh? What's missing? Guess the boys better be ready for some overrated chants. Is this because of the split?
Nate, you're so hard on this hockey team, bud. I haven't looked at
Nate,
the updated Big Ten
when's the last time you were
rankings.
happy? When were you last happy, Nate?
Go eat. I'm out here defending everyone. Nate C's got my sad boy energy from last week, so go easy on him.
Yeah,
Next
I
up,
told you you were a twat
the
earlier.
season's not over. They're not the wagon that we thought they were, but they have every opportunity still this year. Next up from Nate C. Do people understand we will never be Indiana? They gambled with an unknown coach and got extremely lucky. We gambled with a guy who got fired for essay and hazing. Um, I think it is definitely true. And I think we adopted this in our coverage of this year's coaching hire that Indiana did get lucky, and sometimes these things just happen or they just don't happen. Um, I think the back half of this is also fair. He was fired for a hazing scandal. Um, I guess let's take Nate C at his first part of this. Do you think it's impossible for MSU to be on the type of run that Indiana is on right now? Just brand to brand.
No, I don't think it's impossible. Wait, do I think it's impossible with our current coach? Do you mean
No, I mean impossible ever.
like ever? Of course, it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana is itself the proof that it's possible. They're the losingest
Yeah,
big, like major program, major conference program. And they're on the road to destiny right now. And in a very convincing way. This isn't like some natty teams that sort of end up there. They're going to have run through everyone. So Nate C, I think we could stand to be a little bit more optimistic, but I get you. I was there last week. Next up from Leaf, you want to read this one?
I can't help but try and pronounce it as Shawshank.
That is exactly what I was going to say out loud, but that is not it.
Well, we're going to say it anyway. Shawshank Priya has just been selected as the new MSU Vice President for Research and Innovation, pending the Board of Trustees' approval. Thank you for that detail, Monopoly. Listeners needed to know that. Would you consider Jonesy as the research lead and Plum as the innovation lead for Can't Read, Can't Write since the live episode aired?
I think Monopoly did not have her finger on the pulse of the different roles that our team members play over here. Innovation lead.
Next up from Monopoly, why is it that when listening to the pod, I think of several ideas for questions, but now when it's time to send questions in, I can't recall? What is your best method for remembering thoughts and ideas? Monopoly, I'm going to suggest you invest in creatine. For you, Greg, is it A, pen and paper, B, Apple or Google Notes on your phone, C, voice recorded memos, or D, text the team?
I'm just going to channel my my inner Mitch Hedberg and say, E, convince yourself that they weren't very good questions anyway.
Next up, Mr. Neurotic Pants. Can you please schedule the show consistently so as to not trigger a hormonal fluctuation in passive aggressive Grooch?
Yeah.
Also, old men like me don't like it. Yeah, Greg was a real piece of shit last week, and he deserves to be told that. Next from Mr. Neurotic Pants. Do Big Ten refs watch film before games too? Do they look out for certain players committing certain penalties, or would that be too biased? I think this is a good question. We should ask Plum. My guess is that they actually are officiating too much. Like, these guys are officiating 6 days a week. I don't think they're watching
I think
film.
they're on the road too much. They're overdoing it a little bit. And it was
But
discussed the week that I wasn't here. The fact that these guys masquerade as doing other things in their lives, that then they're officials on top of it. Like, they make our poor guy Beppe Plum look underworked as a result. Like, there's no way that they're meaningfully contributing in those other areas, like raising families or whatever. So,
or policing Pittsburgh,
or being asked to no longer police Pittsburgh. So I think there is a degree of like debriefing after the games, of how they did, and there's like the scoring system and all of that stuff. And definitely these guys talk. Like, they're just like every other insular community. They all know each other, they all have feelings, and they all know about the players and the coaches and all that stuff. So things get around. If there's not a formal film watching process, there's a lot of stuff that kind of looks like a film watching process that takes place. And then finally from Mr. Erotic Pants, I think we kind of answered this one. You know, what did he actually say? And we don't know.
Teresa Giudice, prostitution whore.
That's correct.
Last up, Upper Deck Dirt Guy. Is Wisconsin our hashtag real rival?
Interesting question, considering we're not playing Wisconsin in anything this week, as far as I'm aware. But I would say that they definitely were at the tail end of our time in school and then going on for like the next 5 years after that. And I think we lost something when that petered off, when we didn't have Bo to hate anymore. The first Big Ten championship game still stands as the most heartbreaking athletic event of my entire life. I think we would have done well to pivoting and kind of formalizing that to the extent that you can't force these types of things to happen unless you try, and it is spectacular like we did with Penn State. But what the university or the conference could have done was do things to cultivate this more when it was happening organically, And I think that was a real missed opportunity. So I think they would
I
have
think
benefited from it. And I think we certainly would have benefited from it.
I guess the only thing that I might push back on is that if you look at the questions, is Wisconsin our hashtag real rival? And I think we all know it's forks down today, forks down tomorrow, forks down forever. There's one true rival, and it's Indiana.
And I also think this is Upper Deck Jerk Guy making a backdoor Heated Rivals reference. Okay. That was very dramatic.
What just
this
happened?
time delight just turned off on me.
Oh my God. All right. 2 more questions. What is the worst officiating error that you
Even
can
this
recall
light is like, it's time to go. What are you still doing?
The question is, what is the worst officiating error that you can recall in Spartan history? And Greg, I think it ties into his first question and something you said. Remember that roughing the kicker call?
Yeah. There was one. Keyshawn Martin in that game being called out of bounds as he caught the ball miraculously and got 1 foot inbounds, and then being called out of bounds changed the game. Like, we could. Why are you doing this to us, Upper Deck Jerk Guy? Oh, we could just have a whole episode of these. Oh, the lights were out. I was ready to go nap time, and now I'm fired up because of this question, Upper Deck Jerk Guy. What's your worst one of all time? Just name one. Pick one.
I think it's that roughing the kicker in the Big Ten championship game in 2013, right? Like
The inaugural
no,
one, the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it 2011? 2011?
I mean, we had some doozies this year, so we'll take that though. That was really high stakes, and that one hurt. Though that game,
the fact that the punter was laughing about it after the fact,
yeah,
because he flopped like a Brad Davidson on it. Just ugh.
All right, final question from the Upper Deck Jerk Guy, intending to bring us down even more. More likely to become the 51st state: Canada, Puerto Rico, Superior. That's good. I like that, Upper Deck Jerk Guy. DC, too soon. Don't do that to me. Greenland, Mexico, or Guam. Isn't Venezuela already the 51st state?
Yeah. I don't think we're not going to get any of these. It's not going to happen. No more states will be added to the union because everything is a contest for power and not about what's good for the United States. With that, Kevin, go green.
Go white.